Alrighty, welcome back for Genesis chapter 21. A couple things. One, you may notice over the next couple weeks that my environment around me is going to be changing, and that is because we are going to be moving. So just a heads up if you see me kind of located in different places. And secondly, today's chapter 21, is a longer one. So we're going to push through, and I'm going to go pretty quick, but please follow along. Verse 1, Then the Lord took note of Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah as he had promised. So Sarah conceived and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the appointed time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore to him, Isaac, which means he laughs. Then Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. And if you missed our discussion on circumcision, that was chapter 17, if you want to go back and check that out. Verse 5, Now Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh with me. And she said, Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. The child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. Now Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, which was Ishmael, whom she had borne to Abraham, mocking. Therefore she said to Abraham, Drive out this maid and her son, for the son of this maid shall not be an heir with my son Isaac. The matter distressed Abraham greatly because of his son. But God said to Abraham, Do not be distressed because of the lad and your maid. Whatever Sarah tells you, listen to her. For through Isaac your descendants shall be named. And of the son of the maid I will make a nation also, because he is your descendant. So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water, like a canteen, and gave them to Hagar, putting them on her shoulder, and gave her the boy and sent her away. And she departed and wandered about in the wilderness of Beersheba. And Beersheba was a wide, extensive desert region. So here we see Ishmael's mocking of Isaac drive out Ishmael and Hagar, his mom, who would be a threat to the promised seed. Verse 15, When the water in the skin was used up, she left the boy under one of the bushes. Verse 16, Then she went and sat down opposite him, about a bow shot away. For she said, Do not let me see the boy die. And she sat opposite him, and lifted up her voice and wept. God heard the lad crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven, and said to her, What is the matter with you, Hagar? Do not fear, for God has heard the voice of the lad where he is. My guess here is that they're out in the desert, they're out of water, and both of them are miserable and scared of dying. The term angel of God used here literally means messenger of Yahweh, and in context appears to be a phrase for the appearance of the Lord himself. It seems when the definite article the is used, it is specifying a unique being separate from the other angels. The angel of God, or in other translations, the angel of the Lord, speaks as God, identifies himself with God, and exercises the responsibilities of God. In several appearances, those who saw the angel of the Lord feared for their lives because they had, quote, seen the Lord. We'll see this phrase again in Exodus chapter 3, verse 2, and appears to be a descriptive term before the coming of Christ to attempt to describe God's interaction with humanity. So the angel of God continues saying, verse 18, Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him by the hand, for I will make a great nation of him. And now let's look at Galatians chapter 4, verses 22 through 28 to get a further understanding of this whole event. Galatians chapter 4, verse 22 says, For it is written that Abraham had two sons, one by the bondwoman and one by the free woman. But the son by the bondwoman was born according to the flesh, and the son by the free woman through the promise. This is allegorically speaking, for these women are two covenants, one proceeding from Mount Sinai, bearing children who are to be slaves. She is Hagar. Now this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia, and corresponds to the present Jerusalem, for she is in slavery with her children. But the Jerusalem above is free. She is our mother. Verse 27, For it is written, Rejoice, barren woman who does not bear. Break forth and shout, you who are not in labor. For more numerous are the children of the desolate than of the one who has a husband. And you, brethren, like Isaac, are children of promise. And the word used for allegorically speaking in this passage is a Greek word used of a story that conveyed a meaning beyond the literal sense of the word. The Apostle Paul was using historical people and places from the Old Testament to illustrate a spiritual truth. It doesn't mean the events were not literal, but that God set up a literal event that actually had deeper meaning as well. This is why we need to look closely at the original language and the cultural context. Okay, now back to Genesis chapter 21, verse 19. Then God opened her eyes, and she, Hagar, saw a well of water, and she went and filled the skin with water and gave the lad a drink. God was with the lad Ishmael, and he grew, and he lived in the wilderness and became an archer. He lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. And FYI, I'm going to give a little spoiler here. We'll find out in Psalm chapter 83 that during the reign of King David, this great nation, the Ishmaelites, that God raises up through the descendants of Ishmael, join a confederacy against God and against his people Israel and aim to destroy Israel as a nation. So stick around, things are going to get very interesting. Verse 22. Now it came about at the time that Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, spoke to Abraham, saying, God is with you in all that you do. Now, therefore, swear to me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me, or with my offspring, or with my posterity, but according to the kindness that I have shown to you, you shall show to me and to the land in which you have sojourned. Abraham said, I swear it. But Abraham complained to Abimelech because of the well of water which the servants of Abimelech had seized. Verse 26, And Abimelech said, I do not know who has done this thing. You did not tell me, nor did I hear of it until today. Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two of them made a covenant. Then Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. Abimelech said to Abraham, What do these 7 ewe lambs mean, which you have set by themselves? He said, You shall take these 7 ewe lambs from my hand, so that it may be a witness to me that I dug this well. Verse 31, Therefore he called that place Beersheba, because there the two of them took an oath. Beersheba means well of an oath. Verse 32, So they made a covenant at Beersheba, and Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, arose and returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree at Beersheba, and there he called on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned in the land of the Philistines for many days. A tamarisk tree was a reminder of the treaty between the two contemporaries, and also as a marker of one of Abraham's worship sites. The term everlasting God Abraham uses here is a divine name appropriately signifying to Abraham the unbreakable and everlasting nature of the covenant God had made with him, regardless of him being only a resident alien and a sojourner in the land. Okay, guys, thank you for that wonderful chapter and getting through it. And please join me tomorrow for Genesis chapter 22. I look forward to it. God bless.